Okay, I made a video about this maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, but it's been a while. So I am going to rehash a lot of what I said in this old video, but there's a good reason for it. So a couple of years ago, there was a college and career fair that was supposed to take part at a high school in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And thousands of high school seniors were supposed to take a field trip for this college and career fair. What actually happened is that they were sent to a church where there was a massive church service that was called the Day of Hope. And all the warning signs were there ahead of time. But because the students and their families trusted school administrators, or at least because they figured they could get free food and a day out of school, they spent their entire day listening to Christian propaganda instead of learning more about their futures. And it wasn't just unethical, it was. And I want to show you what one of the seniors at the high school at the time, a 12th grader, Alexis, here's how she described the event after returning from the field trip. Okay. And I'll show you this. And I just want you to note the very first thing she says in this post. Trigger warning, mentions of suicide and domestic violence. And that's not a good start to describe what happened during this day. I'm not going to read this whole thing. It actually goes on for a very long time. Just to give you an idea here, this is a very long post. But just the first paragraph. Today's Day of Hope field trip was a horrible experience. It was not advertised as a religious event, but rather a college fair. The majority of students chose to attend this field trip on the promise of free food and the opportunity to skip class. However, the majority of students were not only disappointed by the event, but traumatized as well. I attended this college fair as someone who plans on applying to colleges soon, so I was disappointed once I saw what the event actually was. And just to summarize what she said happened at this event, obviously the Day of Hope phrase has religious connotations. She said students were segregated by gender when the program began, but that's a weird thing for a college fair. Like, why do we need to segregate boys and girls? That's weird. For the girls, the speakers included a pastor who told them to stay virgins, another woman who said girls should not date, wait for God to bring you the right guy. There was a nurse who told a very traumatic story about her son taking his own life. That's where that trigger warning came from. Then, once the kids all came back together in the same room, they heard a sermon from a guy named Donk, D-O-N-K, who said, I used to be paralyzed, and then I was sentenced to life in prison, and then I got out. And he's not paralyzed anymore. And I don't know how that works, but there you go. And at the end of all of this, there was an altar call for any kids who wanted to commit to Jesus right then and there. So that's very, very disturbing. There was an article in the Louisiana news outlet, The Advocate. This is the headline. This is September 22nd, 2022. Parents, students complain East Baton Rouge school's field trip more like church service. Yeah, kind of was, right? That's exactly what happened. And in this article, and from the public statements that were made at the time, it's not like the red flags were evident only after the field trip occurred or like during the things, because this event was scheduled to take place at the Living Faith Christian Center, which is a church. It was sponsored by a Christian ministry called 2911 Mentoring Families. 2911 is a biblical reference to chapter and verse. And the group says on its website that their goal is to redirect our students to Jesus Christ, who defines their future, and to change the world. And by the way, they've put on similar Day of Hope religious events in the past. And what was so disturbing about this is, okay, the church is going to be the church, but what is the district doing about this? Well, look at what they said in The Advocate. In response to the concerns, the East Baton Rouge Parish school system issued a statement defending the event as an elevation of a traditional college and career fair. The statement also defended the school district's partnership with the nonprofit that put on the event, 2911 Mentoring Families, saying the group is providing additional support services for students in our district. We look forward to seeing what our over 2,100 student participants will continue to achieve with the resources and knowledge gained from this event. Maybe There'll be virgins in the future. Like, what the hell does that even mean? Like, just because the public school had a partnership with this ministry doesn't give it the right to voice Christianity on unsuspecting children. And I think that would be obvious if we were talking about any non-Christian religion. But because it was Christianity, I think all the adults in a position of power were like, this is no big deal. One of the other people who spoke out against this was actually a parent and a teacher. She's both. She was a teacher in the district and the mother of a senior. Her name is Brittany. She was at the event. And when she posted about it, she actually shared video from the event. It confirmed everything I just told you. She also shared the field trip form, which listed the address for the church, but it didn't say that it was a church, which is shady and the sort of thing you would do if you didn't want people to know where you were taking the kids. And I just want to show you some of what she shared online. I have had a day we never want to experience again. I'm going to scroll down here. Here we go. After they were inside the church, boys were instructed to go outside while girls were left in the church for girl talk. My transgender child was discriminated against for walking out. She goes on to say, from the beginning, no topics were discussed, but began male chauvinistic competition for monetary reward for winners. What? Then they proceeded to compete for push-ups for more money. They were hyped up and egged on. So basically, they told all the guys, yeah, we're not going to talk to you. Let's just be manly and we'll give you money if you're manly. I then learned that the children were told that in order to receive a meal ticket, they were told to complete a voter registration form. Like, if you want food, kids, be sure you're signed up to vote. Wink, wink. Probably vote for the Republican. That's disturbing. And later on, a female student was picked out and told by a man leading the closing, I'll give you $100 if you can, like, Red Rover through me and get to the stage. And this is after they were talked about domestic violence and male control. What part of this resembles a college and career fair? None of it. It's just very, very disturbing. By the way, the woman who just wrote that, she's Christian, but she was disturbed by what took place, obviously. Like, none of this stuff would have been okay at a voluntary Christian youth camp, but it's so much worse when it's a public school field trip. She also mentioned, by the way, in that post, that students had to wait outside in 100-degree heat, that they were, like I said, incentivized to register to vote in order to get food, which is coercive and manipulative. And yet, even after this whole charade ended, what did the school district say about all this? This is what they posted after the event. Today's Day of Hope event, was amazing. We were honored to hear directly from students to help them address the issues they face and to provide them with motivation and guidance to empower their choices. And like, they have pictures of the event, and you can literally see that this is like at a church service. It's just unbelievably disturbing stuff. And when the Advocate, once again, the newspaper, when they reached out to the guy who was in charge of all this, let me show you what he said. Here we go, right here. In an email, Sterling said his organization has been holding events like the Day of Hope for students in Baton Rouge and surrounding areas for over 10 years. The focus is providing resources and tools to young people as they prepare for their next steps after high school. Like, they've been doing this forever, and no one said anything about it. Like, he's not even pretending this was an accident. This is exactly what they plan to do. So, my point is, these people are not interested in what kids are doing after high school. They didn't help them plan for college or guide them toward a particular career path. They just pushed right-wing messaging on the kids, wasted their time, gave them a different way to ruin their lives with religion. Kids deserve better than that. And the fact that so many adults involved in the planning of this event knew they needed to hide the true nature of this program suggested they were all very aware of why this was illegal. Like, they were counting on students to keep their mouths shut. And the posts I just showed you where people spoke out, that was not part of their game plan. And so when I made this video a couple years ago, what happened is that two students and their parents sued the ever-loving shit out of the school district. All right, so that's some good news. This is the lawsuit they filed. last year around this time. And you could see at the top, it says Jane Roe on behalf of her child, Jennifer Roe, Jane Doe and Jesse Doe. So we have two kids, two parents. I don't know which ones they are, but those are pseudonyms because they don't want to be harassed. And they sued basically everyone, the school board, the superintendent in their professional and personal capacities. And so that's where we left off last time. Like they sued and we don't know what happened. The lawsuit described the harmful and traumatizing church service. Two of the plaintiffs said they were high school seniors who attended the event. Their mother said they never would have consented to this if they had known what was going to happen. And so anyway, the lawsuit restated a lot of what we knew, but it said, one thing I learned from the lawsuit is that they said this partnership had been going on since 2016, that the two sides were engaged in a conspiracy to expose public school. Oh, I'm sorry. This is the allegation in the lawsuit, that the two sides were engaged in a conspiracy to expose public school children to overtly sectarian and religious experiences. The lawsuit also pointed out that this event cost the school district $9,800 to proselytize to kids. One of the other interesting things is they can't even pretend like it was an accident what happened, because they pointed out in the lawsuit that the guy who ran the 2911 mentoring program, his name is Tremaine Sterling, he went on a local news show days before the event and literally lied about what he was doing. He said on that TV show, we're going to have college fairs, career days, workforce people, young people will have an opportunity literally to get hired on the spot. And yet, that's not what happened at the event. And at least one principal allegedly knew nothing about this in advance. So some people knew what was going to happen, and they kept it from the public. The lawsuit also said, and I'm quoting here, students were allowed, I want to find this for you. Students were allowed, check this out right here, number 34, intimidation and harassment of LGBTQ students at this church event were likewise rampant. Under the supervision of 2911, Sterling and the adult volunteers present, students were allowed, and in some circumstances encouraged, to harass LGBTQ plus student attendees, throwing water on them and taunting them. No representative of the school district or the ministry intervened or did anything to stop or prevent this harassment. Like utterly despicable behavior. The same lawsuit says a student who needed to go to the bathroom was denied and told instead to urinate in a bottle on the side of the building. What the hell? They also said if students wanted to call their parents about the event and like, hey, mom, dad, can you pick me up? They really couldn't do that because the church had poor cell phone service, which made it hard for kids to get in touch with their parents. So they were trapped in this place. And the plaintiffs said they suffered from mental anguish. They wanted compensation for that. They wanted to stop the district from ever presenting, supporting, funding, facilitating, or promoting another Day of Hope event ever again. And why do I tell you all of this? Because guess what? This week, a judge decided to issue a major ruling in this case. And what the judge, the federal judge, said, what happened in the past several months is that the school district has been asking the judge to toss out this case. And they make their arguments for why there's no merit, they don't have standing, whatever. So we want the judge to just dismiss this case like it never existed. Well, this week, the judge issued a ruling on the matter, and the judge's name is Shelley Dick. She's an Obama appointee, and she said, oh no, we are not tossing out this case. This case can and will move forward. That is amazing news. Specifically, she said, like, the district argued the mother couldn't sue on behalf of the child for whatever reason, but the judge is like, well, guess what? The child's 18 and she's now the plaintiff. She's allowed to represent herself, so I don't care what you have to say about the mother. The school board members said, we can't be held responsible because this event cost under $10,000, and that means by our policies, we don't have to be looking into the details because it's not that expensive. And the judge is like, I don't care. You're still responsible. Let me show you this from the judge's ruling. The problem of reliance on the school board policies to prove a fact is highlighted here. Just because the board has the has delegated the discretion to execute contracts under $10,000 to the superintendent, like if it's that cheap, the superintendent takes care of it, that is not proof that the board lacked knowledge or did not assent to the contract. The board policies are simply not evidence that the Day of Hope was not approved by all these school board members. Further, this is not appropriate on a motion to dismiss where we have to assume these allegations are true. So I'm not getting rid of this lawsuit just because you're asking me to, as if you didn't know what was going on, right? So throughout the ruling, the judge knocks down all the ways the defendants try to deflect blame for what happened, because they said it's the superintendent's fault. It's not our fault. They said the Day of Hope was not school sponsored. They said if there were any violation of rights, well, guess what? It wasn't because of our school board policies. So stop blaming us for it. And the judge just wasn't having any of it. There was an argument, an allegation was made that the school district violated Title IX, that the event discriminated against trans people and female students, and that's sex discrimination, and that, as a result, the district is guilty of sex discrimination. And the school district said, well, come on, you can't get us on that because no one got sexually harassed. And they say, our board policies say discrimination is wrong, so why are you mad at us? And the judge is like, what the hell are you talking about? I want to make sure I can find that for you here. Sorry, there's so much weirdness here. Here it is. In response to the sex discrimination bit, look at this. The court finds that the allegations of the amended complaint state a plausible Title IX claim based on this reasoning. With no meaningful analysis from the school board defendants, the motion to dismiss the Title IX claim against the school district will be denied. Like, you guys are not responding to what they said. We're not getting rid of this lawsuit just because you asked me to. The judge also agreed that the district should have known these problems could occur in advance, that this wasn't some accident. It's not like they invited a speaker to tell kids to avoid drugs, and then the speaker goes rogue and says, you know what you need to do, kids? Accept Jesus in your life. That might have not been the school district's fault. But in this case, the potential harm was so obvious before the event that you can't pretend like you had no awareness that might happen. So ultimately, the most severe allegations, if they are proven true, and they have not been yet, not according to a court, if they are proven true, it would be really damning for the school district. And for those reasons, the judge said, I'm not dismissing the most meaningful elements of this case. The only elements that were dismissed were some technical aspects of who can be sued under what capacity. But by and large, we're going to get a ruling on this. And the facts do not look good for the school district. And I just want to say all of this was avoidable. Like, the district should have known what they were getting into. They should have known about the proselytizing. They never should have approved the event. And I just want to thank the anonymous plaintiffs for having the courage to bring this forward. And they've raised a lot of fair questions about why the adults in charge did not appear to do a damn thing to stop the Day of Hope event. So I will leave it at that for now. What questions we got here before we move on to anything else? What state was this in again? This was in Louisiana. Is it legal to force kids to register to vote to eat? No. No, like, I'm all for telling kids you should register to vote. And if they don't want to, okay. But also to say you're only going to give you food. By the way, it's 100 degrees outside. So if you need some energy and you're hot, guess what? There's only one way for you to get food, and that's by registering to vote. Horrible. This church event sounds like my upbringing. The stream is actually cathartic for me. Thank you, Hemmant. Oh, that's sweet of you to say. I'm sorry for rehashing all your childhood trauma, but thank you for watching. As a teen, me and my friends would have made a big deal of donk and completely taken this train wreck onto another track. Dude, there are videos of donk online where he talks about being paralyzed and he's not paralyzed. And it's like, dude, I have questions. Like, did you regrow your tippy toes too? What's the deal? If you are not paralyzed, I have questions for your doctor as well.